I'm outside the National Perry Pear Centre and we're about to meet Charles, who's an expert in Perry pears. Let's see what he has to say.
Yes, we live in the part of England, North Gloucestershire, which is unique in that it has Perry pears. They're the type of pear specifically developed for making alcohol.
Oh my goodness, check that.
That's called the beetroot pear. These were bred as a curiosity. The gentry would have their friends to dinner and say, look at this, I've got a pear with red flesh. And here's my recording of it for posterity, so people will know forever what it is. It's to give the pears credibility. And behind me, we've got a display of 97 varieties of Perry pear, which Jim Chapman has collected to display at the Three Counties show. I think he's hoping it's a world record. It's just lovely to actually hold it in my hand. A legend. This is the Hartpury green. And this variety got Jim Chapman interested, and he started the collection here.
The purpose of the whole centre is to preserve the national collection of Perry pears, but obviously we need some income in order to support that purpose. And so we've now, and it's just starting this year, we're going to set up this milling and bottling process so we can produce our own Perry, sell it, and hopefully raise a bit of money.
But the most important thing, I think, our job isn't just to protect the varieties by keeping them here. We must use them. If we don't plant these trees, they're going to become extinct. You graft a pear tree, that tree will be there for 300 years. So it's vital we have these national collections, because I believe in the small farmer. Big farmers just plough everything up, produce commodity products for the supermarkets, great. Supermarkets need cheap commodity products. But some of us like something a bit different, something special that links to the ground, links to here. And that's what these pears do. I mentioned they're named by village, and that's lovely. You can be a small guy, you can have some of these trees, you can make perry, which is the drink that's made from pears. So I've made it my business to go around locating trees, taking cuttings, grafting them, and I thought, what am I going to do with them? So I got in touch with the Three Counties showground and said, look, can I talk to you about pears? Well, the answer is yes to everything. What do you want us to do? And I said, plant a national collection of pears on the showground to save them becoming extinct. So it's a reference collection. If you wanted to plant a pear of, say, this variety here, which is the Hartpury green, you go along, you take a cutting off the tree like that, and you graft it, and there's your variety has been reproduced, and it'll go on giving you pears for very many years, incidentally.
In the heart of the Malvern Hills is a gem of a hotel, just a couple of hours drive from London. Just walked into this magnificent room at the Colwall Park Hotel, which also happens to be the bridal suite. Isn't it superb? After a long drive, it's refreshing to be greeted by a welcome drink. I don't drink alcohol, but lucky for me, there's this refreshing Malvern spring water straight from the well. As well as the bar, you can enjoy a tasty meal in this restaurant. Dining at this restaurant is a treat. Chef Richard's just got his second AA Rosette.
My name is Matthias. I work here at the Orchard Centre in Hartpury. This is an apple from the orchard here. They are hand-picked from the trees here, and now I'm in the process of washing the fruit and milling it and pressing it, and the juice is then going to be left overnight, and it's going to be bottled tomorrow morning.
Yeah, just pop it in there?
Yes, and then lift it up and put it on.
Oh, like this? Oh, that's amazing. Oh, fantastic. Okay, that's how it works. Yeah, it's quite straightforward. This is a little bit like milking a cow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, that's really amazing. Ah, I need one of these.
You can buy the juice from us here at the Orchard Centre, but we're also going to be up at the autumn show in Malvern.
You shouldn't mention apples in the National Perry Pear Centre. Those we go and... before I set up the centre, I was interested in fruit and had the land available, so I planted quite a few of the sort of more heritage types of apple, and they're also coming into production now, and so we are going to market this year a heritage apple juice, which is basically a combination of all these fruit from all these old varieties. But most pear juice I find is a little bit sweet sickly. It needs that little cutting edge that I think a Perry pear can provide. We are aiming this year to experiment with different types of Perry pear and to see which of these produces a nicer drink.
Which is like it's like cider, but it's made from pears, and it's more akin to wine really. It's a very fine drink. We actually got a distillery, and we take it a stage further and we distill this perry into pear spirit. But again, we do it single variety, so we've got pear spirit made with the Dimmock red pears, and that is something really, really special. And people are always on to us, you know, can I have a bottle of this valuable liquid? It is so rare, and it also tastes quite nice. We had television man came one day doing a thing on us, and he said, God, that's so good. He said I could bathe my wife in it. So the point is, it's a funny old-fashioned product. Tastes quite sophisticated, and each variety is a bit different. There's one particular one you cannot eat. I'd give you a pound if you ate one. It's called flaky bark, and it's very astringent. So you eat it, and then it goes a bit at the back of the mouth, and then it dries you out. It takes the skin off your mouth. Very, very astringent. But when you make it into perry, it's not. That astringency disappears. If you've got an acre of ground, you can plant 2 or 3 Perry pears, and that helps. But really, it's not just preserving the tree, it's the product. That's what engages people. People like it, they want more, they're interested. Other people plant trees. That's what you can do. Now, in this orchard behind me, I don't think I can see one now, there's a breed called the Gloucester cow. It's very, very rare. We keep them at home, we milk them and make cheese, which is what the breed is originally for. They're so rare that people want to keep them because they're rare. They do nothing with these cows, and it's vital you keep them, you milk them and make cheese. It's vital that we don't just have these trees to provide shade, that we pick the fruit and do things with it, because that's the way it becomes embedded in our culture, and they will go on forever. There's no point in us spending all this energy planting these things if there's no interest in them. We must give them credibility, give them dignity, use them. This is my pear. This is from my village of Dimmock, the Dimmock red, the one I thought was extinct, and it nearly was, because when I went looking, we just found one tree, and we propagated that, so the variety is saved. We've got trees planted in the 3 collections, and it makes a lovely drink. Got here, innocuous little pear, wouldn't harm anybody, would it? It's called flaky bark, and it was one actually we thought was extinct. We knew of one tree that had been cut down, and we thought that's the end of that. I was going up the road in my horse and cart one day, a place a few miles from here. I looked across at these line of pear trees on the road, and I suddenly thought, hang on, they're flaky bark. Because I was going so slowly with the horse and cart, you see, you look at things. Anyway, I went to see the farmer later, and it was the flaky bark variety. So the bark on the tree flakes off like a London plane tree. And there we are. I would not eat one of those pears because I couldn't. It would burn the inside of my mouth out. So I'd give anybody a pound who did eat one. But you can't have it from this display because they're going on show at the 3 Counties show at Malvern in a week's time. But flaky bark, yes. Oh, and by the way, it's spelt incorrectly because the man who first described it, called Herbert Durham, spelt it F-L-A-K-E-Y. And I understand the correct spelling of flaky is F-L-A-K-Y. But anyway, he spelled it EY. And once it's been published as flaky bark EY, it has to stay that forever. It can never be changed. We're reading of a variety called the Speart pear, S-P-E-A-R-T, which grew down by the River Severn. And we thought, well, it's never been described, it's just a name. And I was talking to the farmer down there one day. He said, hey boy, he said, you ever heard of the old Speart pear? He said, it's Spirit like that. I said, yes, I have. He said, well, I've got one. I said, what? Anyway, he had, we propagate it, and this is it. Now, this word Speart is actually somebody who went and wrote down the name as the farmer said it. But I said to the farmer, I said, this name's Speart. He said, well, it's not Speart, it's Spirit. He said, it's how we say spirit. S-P-I-R-I-T. This variety was specially for distilling and making spirit, not for making perry, which is why it had died out. There were a lot of those trees in the area because there are orchards on the old maps, the Spearts. So it was a huge industry. It may have been connected with smuggling by the river, which was rife there, but I can't quite explain why they'd want to make pear spirit when they're smuggling in brandy. Maybe they were adding it to brandy to make it more of a volume, I don't know. So the old Spirit pear, as they would say, this is it. And it's just lovely to actually hold it in my hand. A legend, terrific history. The variety I got in front of me was another variety we'd seen written down in the old literature, no description, and I go to the farmer, he said, oh, I've got an old variety here called snake pole. Snake pole, that's a funny name. Anyway, we duly propagated it, and this is it. Now, snake pole. Anglo-Saxon for a snake is snig, which actually refers to an eel, which is like a snake, it goes in the water. So they called their eels snigs. Now, they have a barbaric tool called a snake pole here, which is flattened blades with serrations and a long handle. When you think there's a snig or an eel in the mud there, you go like that and it pierces the poor thing either side, grabs hold of it, and you get him out. That's a snake pole or snig pole. But why this? Well, I think the silhouette of a snake pole is like that, and the tree when it's young is a pole and with branches sticking out like that. And I think that's how it got the name snake pole. Right, the variety of Perry pear I've got here is called Moorcroft. Very nice pear, very well known, excellent perry. It has a reputation of you don't feel drunk. You're sitting down drinking it and it's all fine. You get up to go, it cuts you off at your knees. I've heard the story time and again of old people said, oh yeah, drink that Moorcroft, it's lovely, it doesn't make you drunk until you try and stand up. Another name for it is the wheelbarrow pear, because you've got to be taken home in a wheelbarrow because you can't walk. But that isn't my main story about this pear. It's got another name to Moorcroft apart from wheelbarrow pear, and that's Stinking Bishop. Now, this grew on Mr. Bishop's farm near here at Colwall, and he was a terrible character, and he earned himself a nickname Stinking Bishop because he was a smelly old fella, and the name got applied to his pear. Now, I'm a cheesemaker, that's how we man our living. We milk cows and make cheese, and one of the cheeses we make is called Stinking Bishop because we wash the rind in perry, made maybe from Stinking Bishop, maybe not, but that links the pear to the cheese. And because the cheese is so smelly, we wanted to give it that name to warn people that who like very, very mild cheese, don't buy this cheese because it really does smell. So that's the link to the cheese, to the pear, to the land, to this area. But it's no good me just going out and picking pears and saying, that's that variety, I have to justify it. So the only way of doing that was to record what the old people told me, describe the fruit, and that's what I've done in this book, if I could find a page. Yes, so somebody gives me the beetroot pear, this is a beetroot pear. Well, if I go around telling people that, they'll say nonsense. You publish it in a book and you give your reasons why, the person who told me, the dates, and as much information as I can get, and that's there forever. It'll probably be out of date in 5 years' time. It'll be added to, I hope. So it's to give the pears credibility. That's why I did it. So we gather up these different varieties of fruit. They're very interesting. We write books about them and we wax lyrical about them, but actually at the end of the day they're there to do a job, and that job is to provide a drink, perry. We go one stage further. We make the perry, we also distill it into a spirit, but this is sort of between the two. This is distilled perry, so you've got a spirit of 80-90% alcohol, which is very, very strong, too strong to drink, and we mix it back with freshly pressed juice, and we leave it for a year or two, and that's this product. It's only 20%. It's a bit like sherry. It's sweet, but it's not from sugar, it's the sweetness of the pear, so it's very easy to drink. 20% won't make you drunk as long as you don't drink a gallon of it, and it's actually quite a nice drink. And I say that myself, I'm not a big drinker, but it's very complex. People who write about it, people who sell it, they say it's the most complex drink they sell. And that's just going along in our funny old muddling way, doing what our ancestors did, and it works. It's that I've been asked to be the High Sheriff of Gloucestershire, which is a post which goes back 1,000 years. The appointment's made by the Queen, and she pricks my name out on vellum. So my name is written on calf skin, and she makes a hole against my name. That's to stop me pulling out of it, saying, oh, I don't fancy this job, because in the old days it was quite a hard job. You had to administer justice at the point of a sword, and you had to extract taxes at the point of the sword, all for the king. So England and Wales divided into counties. Each county had their High Sheriff, who was the king's man on the ground, to raise taxes and administer quite vicious justice. That was 1,000 years ago. Things have gone on now. My role now is largely charitable.